is part of the video group, Changing Schrodinger's Equation. This part is the comedy section. The comedy section notes that Schrodinger's equation is actually only adequate to describe the hydrogen atom. Thus, if we liked, we could presume that the many worlds interpretation of physics actually only causes the mass production of parallel universes comprised only of hydrogen atoms. That's because simulating things like entire helium or lithium atoms requires iterative computing, as far as I've read, and the methods to do that, the programs are, I believe, many orders of magnitude more effective than Schrodinger's equation. So basically, here at the comedy section, we talk about how only hydrogen atoms that are solitary are reflected at the creation of parallel universes, which, when you think about it, would mean that the entire universe being recreated as another universe, the sun, only the nimbus of stray hydrogen atoms would be duplicated, and perhaps all of those stray hydrogen atoms might eventually coalesce with gravity into another sun and perhaps create future atoms. Yet we'll talk about plurality of meaning of duplication. And look here at the observable universe that I know about how many kinds of reflections there are, which actually are completely lacking in full cognitive meaning, which perhaps, here at the comedy section, supports the idea that at the many worlds interpretation of physics, vast quantities of minimal similarity universes are created. Now, here's a few of the kinds of reflections you've probably heard about. There's an actual person. We'll have that person be a Cartesian human. They can think and they know what they're doing. Now, right next to them are all the nitrogen and oxygen atoms that surround their body. Nitrogen and oxygen atoms are actually much smaller than the protein that the surface of the human being is made out of. And if you like, if this were water, the resolution of the surrounding object is actually higher than the resolution of the conscious Cartesian being. Yet that's an obvious reflection that's produced by the mere existence of the Cartesian human. Now, of course, if the Cartesian human is standing next to an ordinary optical mirror, you get what looks just like a human. Yet we're completely aware that that reflection, as far as I'm aware, is absent knowledge of being. And regarding the actual physics of it, it doesn't seem to have any ability to affect things with the same amount of mass. When you look at something like F equals ma, an optical reflection has very different abilities than an actual massive human being. Now, here's the holographic superimposition of a huge number of highly reliable three-dimensional versions of a human being. Now, if you look at a human being underneath a street light, which has defined spectral lines through diffraction grating, each of those, if the person is actually standing near water or even has certain optical effects, could be construed as a reference beam and an illumination beam, which would create a functional hologram of the human being. So every human being standing near a street light is actually surrounded by a plurality of well-constructed three-dimensional views as holograms of their own being. And these, of course, actually have greater data quality than a regular optical reflection, yet most of the time we're completely unaware of them because they just spread out from our body and we don't see them. Furthermore, there's even more of them when the person's outside in the sun. It's just that there's so many spectral lines simultaneously, there's a complete absence of individuation of the holograms. Now going a little further, beyond these mere optical things, as well as, of course, the volumetric sheath of higher than human resolution gas molecules, is the actual three-dimensional creation of replicas. Now, you may have noticed that gas flowing out of a tube causes regular perturbation shapes. These are repeating three-dimensional shapes. Basically, they're three-dimensional fractals, and what they are is three-dimensional matter repeats. These are highly impressive parallel versions of the source. Yet when you look at these, the actual thing that causes them is completely non-represented at the repeating three-dimensional object. Similarly, the Cartesian observer, somebody like the viewer or me, who can actually think, at this point is fairly convinced that the oxygen atoms that surround them in perfect 3D detail, their optical reflection, a huge group of holograms, or even possibly some kind of three-dimensional wake they leave around them. All of these are, as far as I know, completely absent consciousness. So based on this, as well as this notion that only the hydrogen atom has a sufficient mathematical validity to be reproduced at the many worlds interpretation, it's possible that a vast number of the many worlds created at the many worlds interpretation are completely absent sense of consciousness or being. And of course that matters for ethicists and people like that who might be really concerned if there was an exact duplicate of them having to think about things, but would be considerably less concerned if it was just a map of the outside of their body made out of hydrogen atoms.